Okay, just to build a bridge between our introductory space and this new space of horror that we're going to be occupying. This idea of the Gothic, right? From the course description, Victorian horror will begin. Our course will begin a bit pre-Victorian with two 18th century Gothic novels, Horace Walpole's Castle of Otranto and Anne Radcliffe's The Italian, before turning to a bunch of works that are a little later in the tradition, the same century. So what's this business about the Gothic? Probably some of you know something about it, others not as much. It's a handbook description. I think it's a good handbook. It's the glossary by Harfam and Abrams that some of you will know from previous courses. A handbook description or characterization of the Gothic, right? We're not going to read through the whole thing, but if you look at some of the red material, some of the material that I've highlighted, what you will see is that writers of the Gothic novel, some of them, followed Walpole's example. Okay, Walpole is the author of this first book that we're going to be reading, that I'm hoping that you have read by now, or that you soon will have read, because of course we have the quiz coming up. Some writers followed Walpole's example. These are late 18th century writers, right? Because Walpole's book was published in the 1760s. Some writers followed Walpole's example by setting their stories in the medieval period. Others set them in a Catholic country, especially Italy or Spain. The locale was often a gloomy castle furnished with dungeons, subterranean passages, and sliding panels. This is all the stuff that we're very used to when we think of this term, the Gothic. The typical story focused on the sufferings imposed on an innocent heroine by a cruel and lustful, so often it's a lustful villain as well as a cruel one, and made bountiful use of ghosts, mysterious disappearances, and other sensational and supernatural occurrences, which in a number of novels turned out to have natural explanations. We're going to see that the novels we're reading kind of split the difference on that question. Okay, some of them will, in fact, come up with a perfectly natural, perfectly rational explanation for something very strange that occurs. And then we'll have others that don't. They come up with something really kind of shocking and weird as the rationale, as the explanation. The principal aim of these novels was to evoke chilling terror by exploiting mystery in a variety of horrors. Many of them are now read mainly as period pieces. You could say that's what we're doing, but I don't call something a period piece, which means it's a piece only of interest to people who are interested in that period, in this case, Victorian. I don't call a piece a period piece when you find movie after movie after movie in the 21st century being made about these things. For example, this most recent film by Elordi, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Frankenstein, right, which is, of course, inspired by the book that we'll be reading. The best of them, however, whether they're period pieces or not, the best opened up to fiction the realm of the irrational and the perverse impulses and nightmarish terrors that lie beneath the orderly surface of the civilized mind. We're going to be exploring that space pretty resolutely and in a variety of different texts as we make our way through the semester. And if you go over to the right side, the term Gothic has also been extended to a type of fiction which lacks the exotic setting of the earlier romances. Many of them have domestic settings, as we're going to see. A good example is Frankenstein, or rather Dracula, which actually has both kinds of settings. We begin in the exotic space of Transylvania, right, but end up back in London. Those that have extended the term Gothic, being extended to a type of fiction which lacks the exotic setting, but nevertheless develops these books, no matter how domestic they are in the setting and how ordinary they are in the sphere and space in which the uncanny surfaces, these books develop a brooding atmosphere of gloom and terror, representing events that are uncanny or macabre or melodramatically violent, often dealing with aberrant psychological states. Okay, and this business down below, why not? Critics have recently drawn attention to the many women writers of Gothic fiction have explained features of the mode as a result of the suppression of female sexuality, or else as a challenge to the gender hierarchy and values of male-dominated culture. And I think we're going to see that both in Frankenstein, which is written by a woman, Mary Shelley, as well as in George Eliot's wonderful little novella that we're going to be reading as well, The Lifted Veil. Okay, once again, this is just a very brief little thumbnail sketch of what it is we're going to be doing, which I hope will enable you to read the book and understand this first book, Walpole, maybe a little bit better than otherwise. Here's the central question, it seems to me, that the Gothic asks, and this is the center of Gothic wonder. Are we, as any number of these things, as we like to think we are? Are we as rational as we like to think we are? Are we as respectable as we like to think we are? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll, an embodiment of Victorian respectability. Mr. Hyde, something other. Are we as rational? Are we as respectable? Are we as civic-minded? Or are we more savagely individualistic, in the bad sense? Down below, I've got individualistic as a good thing. So maybe I could just mention that here as well. Are we as individualistic in a good way as we think, or maybe individualistic in a bad way? Not so much enlightened self-interest, but rather just rapacious self-absorption and self-assertion, right? That's these fears. Are we as these good things as we like to think we are? Are we as lawful? Are we as orderly, civilized, moral, ethical? Are we as fair-minded? Are we as equitable? Are we as equable, level-headed? Are we just simply as, kind of on an even keel as we like to think that we are on your average day? Or they're always surfacing these strangenesses that disturb us and that, in various ways lead to discomfort, perhaps just when we're by ourselves, or maybe even more so when we're in social situations with others. Are we as kind, are we as humane as we think we are? Are we even as human as we think we are? Or are we not animals? It's going to be all this Darwinianism that's going to be surfacing throughout the semester, especially, again, when we get to Dracula. Are we committed? Are we as spiritual as we think we are? Are we as committed to such authentic spiritual values as we find that we truly have? What we have, are we committed to them? Or are they just values that we kind of, see up there? Sometimes we are obedient to them, sometimes not. Are we as modern as opposed to primitive or primal as we think we are? And here's a question that's going to be asked in the video that follows this video, which is 110 mod 1 video 1, as opposed to this one, which is 110 mod 1 video 0. Are we as the Gothic wonders? Are we as heroic as we like to think we are? So without further ado, please move on.